Fenrir, also known as the Fenris wolf and Vanagand, meaning monster of Van, which also means creature of expectation, due to the prophesied fable of the creature being involved in bringing the end of the gods. Fenrir was the progeny of Loki and the Jotun Angrboda, along with his two siblings Jormungandr and Hel. Fenrir lived within the realm of Jotunheim under the guidance of his mother. Due to the nature of the prophecies and the foreboding cruel fate of the gods, these offsprings of Loki were hauled from Jotunheim and brought to Asgard. Following that, Odin did what seemed fit to either manipulate the prophecy in his favor or prevent it from ever happening. So, the Allfather threw Jormungandr into the ocean, cast Hel into Niflheim, and relegated her authority over the dead, and finally bounded Fenrir in captivity. Today, we will explore Fenrir's story further in the following section of the video. The prose Edda and Heimskringla, both authored in the 13th century by Snorri Sturluson, as well as the poetic Edda, which was assembled in the 13th century from older traditional sources, contain mentions of Fenrir. Fenrir is the parent of the wolves Skoll and Hati Hrovidnesen in both the poetic and prose Edda, while the rest of his tale remains the same and is talked about further. Fenrir was never a being filled with sinful intentions, and neither was his father Loki, who is depicted as an inherently malevolent character in today's fiction. Loki was this type of deity in Norse mythology that would bring about change and encourage development. Although not evil, Loki's ways were considered chaotic by the other gods, and his involvement was always unwelcoming in the ordered realms. Fenrir, on the other hand, was a completely innocent wolf who was betrayed by the Aesir gods during his time in Asgard. Since they feared his power, the gods of Asgard did everything in their capability to reduce the threat that Fenrir posed. As we will discover further, the story of Fenrir does not portray him as a vicious creature that slayed gods for its pleasure. Rather, Fenrir was a victim who lived peacefully amongst the gods as their pet until they backstabbed him, which eventually led to the prophecies coming true. Join us as we will now explain the mythological tale, The Binding of Fenrir, so that we can get a better understanding of the creature and what his life was like. Before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us it means a lot. Thank you, and let's begin. Fenrir in Norse mythology. Fenrir, or Fenris, is one of the most revered wolves talked about in Norse mythology. The tales of its life in binds and its glorious final battle are well known throughout the world. Depictions of Fenrir have been found in plenty by mythologists upon inspection of surviving runestones from the pre-Christian Scandinavians and the plethora of mentions of the wolf in Norse literature. Son of the god of mischief and the giantess Loki and Angrboda, respectively, Fenrir is the brother of the goddess of the underworld Hel and the world serpent Jormungandr. The Aesir gods were always apprehensive of Fenrir and its siblings. It was prophesied that these siblings would bring the Aesir gods a terrible fate by reason of their nature and unfathomable power. Fearing their foreboding, the Allfather Odin commanded his subordinate gods to make their way into Jotunheim, the place where Loki and Angrboda birthed their three children. These Aesir gods were tasked with capturing and presenting the three in front of Odin, in an effort to overcome the prophecies and prevent them from bringing devastation throughout all of the 9 realms. Odin threw Jormungandr into the ocean of Midgard, where he encircled the world of humankind and relegated Hel to Helheim. For Fenrir, however, they have different plans. Fearing Fenrir's power the most out of the 3, the Aesir decided to keep a close eye on the wolf. They held him captive inside of Asgard after his birth, and only the likes of Tyr were brave enough to approach the wolf to feed him. During his captivity, Fenrir showed signs of accelerated growth as it aged. The small wolf grew at an astonishing rate, both in size and power. Fearful of its might, the Asgardians decided that his stay there would be short-lived. They also realized that allowing Fenrir to roam free would be an invitation for the wolf to wreak havoc among the realms. By virtue of all this, the gods decided to bind Fenrir with chains. Not willing to get on his bad side, the gods made sure to gain his consent to do so by making the whole ordeal seem playful. They would ensure him that the chains were just a test of his might and would cheer him on when he broke free from them. Playfully but suspiciously, Fenrir kept being bound as per their will in breaking out, shattering each new chain the Aesir shackled him with. The Council of the Gods then sought the dwarves and sent a messenger to the realm of Svartalheim. The dwarves, the most proficient craftspeople in all of the 9 realms, hence they were tasked with forging a chain that would be considered unbreakable, and no chain would be comparable to it. The dwarves then started the preparation of such a chain and required certain specific items, such as the beard of a woman, the sound of a cat's footsteps, the roots of a mountain, the saliva of a bird, and the breath of a fish. All of these items were things that do not exist in real life and hence rendering any effort to break the chain futile. The chain, when prepared and ready for use, was called Gleipnir. Prepared to be used on Fenrir to hold him in one place, Gleipnir was presented in front of the wolf. Once again, the Aesir playfully showcased the chain to Fenrir, but due to the suspiciously light and soft nature of the chain, he was apprehensive about following them to bind him with it. Upon his refusal, Fenrir laid out a bargain with the gods. He refused to be bound by the chain unless one of the gods would keep their hand within his jaws. Knowing that their trickery would literally bite them back as their oath would be broken, none of the gods agreed to this deal. Eventually, Tyr came forward as he wanted what was best for all life and selflessly agreed to Fenrir's deal, knowing it would end badly for him. Right when Fenrir was bound by Gleipnir, he realized that he was absolutely incapable of escaping from its grasp. Following their treachery, Fenrir bit off the arm of Tyr and proceeded to swallow it. Constricted and unable to escape, Fenrir was transported to a place that was away from everyone so that the Aesir were safe from his wrath. Tied rigidly to a boulder with a sword between his jaws, Fenrir would howl tirelessly, and from his drooling mouth, the river named Van, meaning expectation, would take shape and start flowing. Desolate, Fenrir spent his time in his makeshift prison, waiting for the day when he would be able to escape his captivity. And that fateful day, the day when Fenrir is prophesied to break free from his prison, would not come to fruition until Ragnarok. Despite the ominous moniker of the river Van, this was not the end of Fenrir's story. Fenrir would live out his days filled with despair, with no one to help him escape his captivity. But as Ragnarok approached, Fenrir grew stronger. At Ragnarok, Fenrir would break free from his shackles and rampage over the cosmos with the top of his mouth in the sky and his lower jaw against the ground, destroying and swallowing everything in his track. Joining his family in the decisive battle against the Aesir, Fenrir would challenge Odin and come out triumphant, killing the Allfather. Although victorious, Fenrir's revenge was short-lived. Following his rampage, he was slain by one of Odin's avenging sons, Vidar. Disclaimer: the following contains spoilers for the game God of War Ragnarok, as we will now explain Fenrir's role in the story. Please be warned. Fenrir in the God of War universe. In the God of War universe, Fenrir makes his presence felt in the latest installment of the video game franchise, God of War Ragnarok. We meet Fenrir near the beginning of the game as we are introduced to Atreus, now a 14-year-old teenager, and the same battle-scarred, strict, wishful, and godly Kratos. Riding Speki and Svanna while fending off the attacks from Freya, Kratos and Atreus reach the place where Fenrir rests. When Atreus finally gets to him, he tries to feed the seemingly ill Fenrir some food. Atreus remains deluded in hopes that Fenrir will survive, but as the wolf throws up what he had tried to consume, Kratos realizes that the time has come and Fenrir is going to pass away due to his sickness. As this terribly emotional scene progresses, we see Fenrir taking his final breath in Atreus' arms, and as the boy weeps, he unintentionally links Fenrir's soul to his dagger. Although Kratos saw the light coming out of Fenrir's mouth, Atreus was completely oblivious to it because he was dealing with a tragic loss of a loved one. As our heroes embark on their journey and face all their trials and tribulations together, in a loving but spiritual way, Fenrir is always beside Atreus. Following this, we do not get to see Fenrir for the majority of the game, eventually as Atreus is attempting to make amends for the mistakes he made on his quest to change fate by going to Asgard and freeing Garm. He is accompanied by Kratos, who shows a higher degree of trust in Atreus after realizing the fault in his ways. Garm was a wolf that Atreus thought was harmless and only wanted to be free from its captivity. Instead, Garm possessed the power to use his paws to create rifts between the fabric of the 9 realms, which allowed Hellwalkers to cause chaos freely on the land of the living. To make his wrongs right, Kratos and Atreus traversed through Helheim in search of Garm and used Atreus' approach of talking some sense into the wolf, by first showing that they did not mean any harm. When it failed, Kratos sternly confirmed that they would now try his way, which meant besting the giant beast through the use of force. Even though the two eventually overcame the beast in a hard-fought battle, the beast rises up again as if it was completely replenished. During the battle, Atreus has the realization that Garm appears to be soulless, and this sparks a vision in his mind. Following this, his plan was to imbue Fenrir's soul into Garm's body, and he did so by stabbing Garm with a dagger and performing a spell in a hasty manner. As the battle sequence comes to an end, Garm runs away and the two chase after him to know if their plan worked. And much to their joy, upon confronting Garm, Atreus uses the name Fen to call him and the two reunite. In a scene filled with sentiment, the giant beast, now Fenrir, shows signs of happiness and recognizes both Kratos and Atreus. He even follows his old training, a scene when Kratos tells Fenrir to sit and the latter shows discipline and obeys the command. Atreus is pleasantly surprised at this whole scenario, as he was not sure that imbuing his soul into another body would work, but it turned out to be absolutely flawless. With Fenrir now back but not around Kratos and Atreus, we do not see the wolf in the following story for a while. Surprisingly, Fenrir does not even make an appearance at the beginning of their battle against Asgard. Instead, Fenrir arrives just in the nick of time during the battle alongside Angrboda to rescue Kratos. Atreus and their allies, as the beginning of Ragnarok starts the annihilation of Asgard after Odin's demise. Thanks to his newfound powers of creating rifts at his discretion, Fenrir is able to save them all from obliteration. Just before the end of the game, Fenrir, accompanied by Angrboda, goes to the hideaway of the Jotnars, Ironwood, for him to live his life in peace. In God of War's universe, Fenrir, now a massive hellhound, has been reincarnated, is one of the most powerful creatures in all of the realms. He now has the ability to open rifts between realms effortlessly. The enormous strength that Fenrir now possesses allows him to demolish Odin's war machines easily and disperse his armies. Apart from offensive prowess, Fenrir has also gained incredible levels of durability and toughness.
Here you die. Deceiver.
Marvelous verdict. Although Fenrir's involvement in the story of God of War Ragnarok has been highly diminished in comparison to the tales from the legends of the creature, his significance in Norse mythology should not be underestimated at all. Having been one of Loki and Angrboda's three offspring, chewing off and swallowing Tyr's hand, creating the River Van, slaying the Allfather, and ultimately bringing an end to Ragnarok are all significant events that have influenced Norse mythology's development. However, we as fans of the franchise have absolutely no complaints about how they switched up Fenrir's narrative to fit the story. The moments that they have succeeded in providing us with between Atreus and Fenrir more than make up for it. The emotions derived from the two scenes where Fenrir passes away in Atreus' arms and then finally reunites with him upon his revival can easily bring tears to any long-term fan of the games, and Santa Monica Studio has absolutely nailed their presentation of the relation between the two. Although the series has never done something of this sort, we hope that we get to see more of Atreus and Fenrir in a DLC pack or a spin-off of the God of War Ragnarok game. If you like our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one and be safe. Thanks everyone.